Hello, happy Wednesday, and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for November 13th, 2024, 11/13/24, World Kindness Day, established in 1998 to help promote kindness, goodwill, and basically the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Open a door for someone today. Let the other car go first. Maybe donate some food, or maybe reach out to a Democrat friend or family member who is still in deep despair over the election and now trying to ruin your Thanksgiving. We'll talk more about that in a bit with Trish Regan and Michelle Tafoya. We knew all along, right, that Donald Trump was going to put Elon Musk in charge of his new Department of Government Efficiency, now being called DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. DOGE, Doge. Like Elon's coin, right? Isn't that his coin? That's crazy. And how about Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy? Wow. Elon posted on X, threat to democracy? Question mark. Nope. Threat to bureaucracy. But the big headline today is, of course, President-elect Donald Trump and Speaker Johnson meeting with President Biden in the Oval Office. This is former presidential candidate, former Arkansas governor, and newly appointed U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee.
Be interesting to see how that meeting goes and what we hear about the post-Biden meeting. Any thoughts on that, Governor?
Yeah, I want to commend President Biden for going ahead and pushing for this meeting and saying, let's have an orderly transition. That's a good thing. What I think is kind of funny, though, Biden has been telling everybody that Donald Trump was a threat to democracy, a Nazi, his supporters were garbage. Suddenly, Trump's welcome to come to the White House and have a meeting with Joe Biden. So I guess Joe's okay with Nazis. He's okay with garbage. He's okay with un-American threats to democracy. So we know all along that that was nonsense and it was a bunch of lies that were being told. But I think to validate it in this way is good. But in all fairness, I am glad that President Biden has invited President Trump. They'll have a nice meeting. I don't think they're going to play golf together. I doubt they're going to be buddies and have a weekly phone call. But this is the way it's supposed to be done.
Governor Mike Huckabee, the huckster, selected by President-elect Trump to be the U.S. ambassador to Israel. This is what Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the current governor of Arkansas, had to say about it.
My dad was just nominated as President Trump's ambassador to Israel. I had the chance to go to Israel for the very first time with my dad when I was 11 years old, and it literally changed my life. There's no greater supporter and nobody that has a greater understanding of our two nations' unbreakable bond. And there is probably a little bit of bias, but there's no one who will do a better job in this role. Congratulations, Dad. We're all very proud of you.
While we are in Arkansas, let me give a shout out to Ken, loyal listener of the Newsmax Daily, who often hits me up on Twitter at @radio_Marino. The other big story, aside from all the Trump appointments, is Senate Republicans voting behind closed doors for a new Senate leader to replace outgoing marble-mouth Mitch. South Dakota Senator John Thune, Texas Senator John Cornyn, and Florida Senator Rick Scott are all in the running. Scott, like President Trump, is or was a businessman. He was the governor of Florida and has known Donald Trump the longest of all three. Newsmax's Chris Salcedo spoke about it with Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin.
What's your reaction to Senator Thune there telling President Trump to essentially butt out? And what about some of your colleagues who are reportedly upset that American citizens are weighing in on their vote tomorrow?
Well, Chris, I've been quite public in encouraging President Trump and others to support Rick Scott. And quite honestly, we get calls from our constituents all the time, and it's entirely appropriate for our constituents to let us know how they feel on particular issues. So nobody should have sore feelings about that or feel threatened by it. That's the way our process works. But no, I'm a big supporter of Rick Scott because he comes from the private sector. You know, one problem in Washington, D.C. is there are so very few people who have any experience in, which means little knowledge of, and maybe even worse, very little sympathy for the private sector. Plus, here in Congress, so many people, they haven't even been part of a functioning organization, one that has a mission, establishes goals. Everybody that works for the organization understands their role to achieve those goals. That's not what Congress is. This is a completely dysfunctional place. And so the vote, I think, and again, I would hope we delay the vote. This is one of the maneuvers by McConnell to just snap election, even though we were talking about, doing it before Thanksgiving, but having candidate forums, maybe a couple days of that, and then have a vote, a more deliberative process. And all of a sudden it was announced right before we left that we're going to vote on Wednesday morning. I think that's outrageous. I hope it's delayed. But anyway, we're going to be voting for, when we do vote, business as usual, which is taken under McConnell's leadership from $8 trillion in debt to over $35 trillion in debt versus a business person's approach. I mean, Rick Scott's an extraordinary individual. Basically built and operated the 8th largest employer in America, then turned those managerial skills into turning the state of Florida around, setting Ron DeSantis up for success. And I've been watching him since 2018 as U.S. Senator. He's a perpetual motion machine, just an extraordinary individual, incredibly humble beginnings, a self-made man. That's the kind of person we need as leader here in the United States Senate.
Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson with a resounding endorsement of Florida Senator Rick Scott, whose life, like J.D. Vance, really embodies the true American dream. Obviously, as a reporter and news radio host in Florida, I got to know the then governor and now senator pretty well. As Senator Johnson said, from very humble beginnings, Governor Scott has a great story, as maybe the others do as well. I don't know nearly as much about Senator Thune or Senator Cornyn's background. You may be interested in knowing when he was the governor of Florida, Scott used his own jet to fly around. He paid for his own fuel. And as Senator Johnson mentioned, he really turned the state around, turned the budget around. A former CEO, not a lifelong politician. And as I discussed yesterday, Florida Senator Marco Rubio has been tapped as the next Secretary of Defense. The current Secretary, Antony Blinken, by the way, is in Brussels today attending some NATO meetings. Former White House Director of Strategic Communications, Mercedes Schlapp, has more on Rubio and some of Trump's other cabinet picks.
And I think one of the biggest concerns that people have right now are the fact that they don't want the president to pull from the House or from the Senate anymore. Now, of course, Florida is a safe Republican seat for now. Governor Ron DeSantis will appoint someone to Senator Marco Rubio's seat. On top of that, Elise Stefanik's seat is a safe Republican seat, as is Congressman Matt Waltz's seat. With that being said, there is concern that when you have such a slim majority in the House, I mean, I think we're looking at 218 seats. You don't necessarily want to keep pulling from the House or even the Senate at this point, because you want to ensure that you keep the House majority and the Senate majority, because that, of course, will only benefit the president.
As for the reports of Marco Rubio serving as Secretary of State, Mercedes, what are you hearing from MAGA base? Would they be in support of that choice?
So, look, I think that the favorite would have probably been a Rick Grinnell, who obviously served as ambassador to Germany as well as the DNI chief. But, I think for President Trump, he's the one that needs to feel comfortable for the pick. Senator Marco Rubio has a very strong record of being on these important committees, on the Intelligence Committee, on the Foreign Affairs Committee. So I think he really does know what needs to happen in terms of ensuring that he pushes a very kind of anti-communist message, the fact that we're going to have peace through strength, and hone in on what the president has to do. I mean, at the end of the day, we have to remember that the president is the commander in chief. He's the one that directs he does direct the policies. And so I think for Senator Marco Rubio coming in, he will just need to follow what President Trump's vision is, which is make sure that we end these wars immediately. And obviously, as senator, he's been involved in these foreign affairs policies for quite some time, especially a big push on anti-communism across the globe, which I think is a very critical message as well.
I just wanted to bring up a name that is not on this list, but continues to be mentioned when you mention Trump, when you mention policy. That is Elon Musk. It's reported he's not going to obviously serve in any cabinet position. He has several different roles already in the private sector, of course, but he will be involved in some fashion, specifically Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. We could keep hearing about that, cleaning out the bureaucracy. What are your thoughts there? Essentially, someone that is not serving in the cabinet advising President Trump, like Elon Musk.
Well, I'm hearing from my colleagues and friends down in Palm Beach that Elon Musk is seen every day at Mar-a-Lago. Obviously he's become, I would say, part of the Trump family, which, is a big honor for Elon Musk. And I do think that what happens with these positions is not every position has to be Senate confirmed, for example, or you go into kind of this bureaucratic system that we see in the cabinet. There are these advisory roles that can be taken up, and Elon Musk can decide, look, I'm going to be an informal advisor from the outside, and he's going to be just as powerful in helping to influence policy. I know that he has moved forward to suggest names and place them in key positions in the administration. But for Elon Musk, I think if he just serves as an advisory role and helps guide the process and put the people that he wants in place, I think that's, it doesn't take away the fact that he's not influential. He's very influential, and he obviously talks to the president and has been guiding the president on some of these cabinet picks.
Former White House Director of Strategic Communications in the first Trump administration, that's Mercedes Schlapp, on Tuesday's National Report with Sean Kreisman. Like him or not, Elon Musk is one of the most, if not the most, brilliant person in the whole country, right? Maybe the world. willfully helping the United States government. Then you have the people that talk about Trump's corporate tax cuts and what kind of favors is Trump going to do for Elon. I think he can help us more than we can help him. He is already the richest person in the world. And for a long time, the guy didn't even own a home. 20 years ago, when he sold PayPal for $176 million, he reinvested 99% of the money. I think he kept $1 million for himself. He's a lot more focused on accomplishments than he is on money, and he has more than he can ever possibly use. In another surprise move, I guess you can call it a surprise. I mean, that is what they're calling it. Trump nominated Fox News host Pete Hegseth to be the next Secretary of Defense. He did serve in Iraq and Afghanistan with the U.S. Army. He also went to Princeton and Harvard. Trump picked former Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe to serve as Director of the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA. Ratcliffe had served as Director of National Intelligence at the end of Trump's first term. He's a former member of the House for Texas, and he received no support from Democrats during that confirmation. So keep that in mind. All right, let's go back to National Report because they also spoke with Judge Andrew Napolitano about the announcement in Trump's New York legal issues yesterday.
All right, following breaking news for you this morning, Judge Juan Merchan delaying his plans on his decision on whether President-elect Donald Trump's New York criminal case can withstand the Supreme Court's presidential immunity ruling. It was set to be decided today. It appears it's pushed off until November 19th.
With us now, Newsmax senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, how does this play with Trump's attorneys? What goes on between now and November 19th?
Well, I don't know what's going to go on. Good morning, guys. It was a pleasure to be with you. I don't know what's going to go on between now and November 19th. The Supreme Court's immunity decision came down in early July, so Justice Merchan has had before him for a substantial period of time both the defendant's argument that the president-elect is immune and the government's argument that what he did was not his official official duties as president, and therefore not immune, and he could very well have ruled on it today. I suspect that because of the election, because Donald Trump in 65 days will be the president of the United States, it is unseemly to bring him into a courtroom as a criminal defendant. So even though Justice Merchan delayed this by just a week or so, in my view, this is an indefinite delay. There will be no sentencing until after 2029 when he leaves office. Now, here's the interesting thing. Under New York state law, and this is the law in most states, a conviction is not a conviction until sentencing. So if Donald Trump wants to say, and if the public wants to understand that he is not a convicted felon, that is legally the case.
Yeah, that's a great point. Moving forward, again, up until Inauguration Day, curious on the legal side of this, is this for the judge to pushing off this decision? He's, as you mentioned, rightfully so, the Supreme Court already handed down their decision. So that's not new for him to process or to go over. Is this for him to pass on to both sides, the prosecution, the defense, to maybe have them hash it out? Is there some agreement there?
Well, the only thing that's new is that Trump won the election, and he may want to elicit from defense counsel and from the government their views of how this should be addressed, given that he is now the president-elect. I don't know that he needs their views. It's quite obvious that in 2 months he'll be the president of the United States. And it's obvious that it would be unseemly, inappropriate, and highly disruptive of the ordinary transfer of power from Joe Biden to Donald Trump for Trump to be concerned with this criminal case. So I don't know, Justice Merchan, but my prediction is this is an indefinite delay, at least for 4+ years.
Former New Jersey Superior Court Judge Andrew Napolitano, an indefinite delay for at least 4 years. And at the open, I mentioned Democrats are now trying to ruin your Thanksgiving as they continue dividing the country more than a week after the election.
If you are going into a situation where you have family members, where you have close friends who you know have voted in ways that are against you, like what you said, against your livelihood, and it's completely fine to not be around those people and to tell them why.
How do we move forward when we know there are people you have people in their families who voted for him? They work with people who voted for him. They live next to people who voted for him. How should we deal with those neighbors, co-workers, family members?
It means dreamers. It means your family members. It means your colleagues. It means your friends. It means people who are part of the society. And look, America, those of you who voted for Trump, this is what you wanted. This is what you voted for. You screwed around and you're about to find out.
All right. Happy holidays. Joining me now, host of the Michelle Tafoya podcast, Michelle Tafoya, and the co-founder of 76research.com and host of The Trish Regan Show, Trish Regan. Welcome to both of you. All right, Michelle, I'm going to start with you. That sounds like absolute pathetic conversation. These are friends and family. Part of what makes this country great is having difference of opinion. But here you have people getting out there basically saying that whomever voted for Trump must be bad. It's crazy.
Crazy is a good word. And I have lived through some of this in my own family. I'm hesitant to say that, but it's true. The Yale psychiatrist that appeared on MSNBC with Joy Reid, I looked at her website. She describes herself as doctor, activist, researcher, and anti-racism educator. So there's a lot to her personality. There's a lot to her background. She's not just a counselor. I think a lot of honest brokers would say, can you just reach across the aisle? Or could you maybe just say, hey, everyone, happy Thanksgiving. We're not going to talk politics. I think there are so many ways to deal with this. We're just not that fragile. And for that legislator to tell people, don't come to my house if you voted for Trump, like there's no room for you.
Right.
That's pretty damn harsh.
It is. And, Trish, I always try to think, okay, what if things were reversed? What if these were Trump supporters saying this to Democrats? You voted for this person, so you can't come here. That would be twisted around. That would then be racist. That would then have all of these isms and attacks thrown after it. But at the same time, don't talk about religion and politics something we've heard for decades? That's kind of the old adage.
I mean, look, this whole thing is absolutely ridiculous. By the way, it wouldn't happen on the other side. I mean, we went through 2020, and conservatives talk to liberals all just fine. I'm with Michelle, and I don't want to get too personal, but I guess this is why my mom hasn't called me back. She's watching too much MSNBC. She's been empowered. Do not talk to the enemy. Not even your daughter? I don't know. I'm teasing right now, but honestly, this is crazy town. They are crazy people, and they want some kind of war, some kind of fight, and they're trying to basically get their troops all in line. But I'll tell you, it's not working. Did you see the ratings? They're down like 51% over at MSNBC.
I saw that.
There's talk that Brian Roberts, CEO of Comcast, is going to sell the network. Listen, they got no future with this nonsense, and Americans aren't going to buy it. So the more they double down on that, you know what? Good for us. Good for us. Good for us, like Michelle, myself with podcasts. Good for you with Newsmax, because this ain't playing in Peoria, as they say. It's game over. He won. Get with the program. Be a united country.
And I thought their side, Trish, were the ones with the lawn signs that said all are welcome here. Apparently not.
Exactly.
Newsmax host Katrina Zish with Trish Regan and Michelle Tafoya on American Agenda. Okay, so the Senate is voting. Trump and Speaker Johnson are at the White House meeting with Biden. By the way, Vice President Kamala Harris is not taking part in today's meeting. This will be the big story, though, throughout the day and the night. There is a White House press conference coming up later this afternoon as well. So there'll be a lot of questions, obviously, asked at the press conference about the meeting, if the meeting has ended by then. And the FEMA worker who was fired for instructing her team to skip homes with Trump signs and banners now says her actions were in accord with the agency's guidance. she's not going to go down alone, right? Saying that it was not isolated to her team only. As I had suspected yesterday, or maybe it was back on Monday, it was also happening in North Carolina as well as Florida. And as I mentioned, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has ordered a full investigation, but North Carolina's Democrat Governor Roy Cooper hasn't said boo yet. On Wall Street, markets opened flat this morning after a government report on inflation showed prices in October were up 2.6% from the same month a year ago. So up 2.6% year over year. That is what analysts were expecting. Month to month, prices ticked up 0.2%. That's from September to October. That according to this morning's CPI report. All right, be sure to keep up with all of the latest developments, and there will be plenty of them today. And breaking news, there'll be plenty of that as well on Newsmax, Newsmax 2, and make sure you're streaming on Newsmax Plus. For the most complete lineup of all of your favorite Newsmax shows, hosts, and guests, NewsmaxPlus.com. Rob Schmidt tonight, Greg Kelly reports, Finnerty, Bianca De La Garza, Greta Van Susteren. Oh, by the way, Greta had an interview with Mike Tyson, who she is apparently friends with. I'm going to play that tomorrow ahead of the big fight, the Mike Tyson fight on Friday night. I'm Tony Marino. This is the Newsmax Daily. Thank you for listening. 7 weeks from today is Christmas Day. We'll start counting it down. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Hey, it's Jerry Callahan from The Callahan Show. You can listen to us every day. We react to the latest news, politics, sports, and all the madness in the world. I'll give you my opinion with a little edge, a little attitude. I'm an unapologetic right-winger, trapped behind enemy lines in deep blue Boston, so I'm used to taking on the mainstream media mob. You can hear us anywhere you get your podcast, or you can listen every day at newsmax.com/listen.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.